Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Escover on behalf of the Office of Economic Development. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about starting and growing your business. And truthfully, this topic could be an all-day session or a three-part session, but today really our focus is on getting you started, giving you ideas, and connecting to you with resources. So we are recording this session and we'll have it available on the city's website and YouTube channel in case you miss it, or if you want to come back and revisit some of the ideas that we'll be sharing today. We have a great panel with different perspectives to share with you. And again, our goal is to cover considerations for starting or growing your new business, things from day-to-day logistics to what type of resources are available to you. So to accomplish this, we've invited a small local business owner, a SCORE mentor, a representative from the Small Business Administration, and the city's own economic development director, who we're going to introduce you to in just a bit. Before we get started, just some logistics. We're going to be doing a Q&A with our presenters at the end and opening it up for questions. But if questions come up as we are going through the presentation, then feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to those at the end. But one final thing before we get started, we just wanted to get a sense of who is in the room. So we are going to launch a poll just to learn a little bit about who's joining us today. So are you as a business owner, are you thinking about starting a business, or are you like, you're just curious, it sounded interesting and you decided to tune in? So we'll give you, oh, we got most folks already. Okay, give you a few more seconds. Okay, so we'll end the poll. Let me share the results. I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but it looks like we have a mix. So we have about half our small business owners, about 33% thinking about starting a business, and then the remainder of folks are just curious. So regardless of why you're here, we have some information for you to take away from this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can see our wonderful panel. And we're going to get started just by learning a little bit more about our panelists. So Julie, can you start us off by telling us a little bit about you, your background?
Guys, my name is Julie Harris Wasserman, and I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. So thanks for the invite. I am a small business coach, and I like to joke that I spent my meat and potatoes of my career at REI, the outdoor retail store. You have one right here in Dublin. I opened that store a couple of years back, and I spent about 15 years for REI and ran retail stores. And that's really where kind of the real nuts and bolts of my business background comes from. REI is an amazing company to work for, and a lot of people stay there forever. But I did a weird thing, and in 2013, I left REI and took over running my mother-in-law's company, which could really be its own story in and of itself, but I won't go into that. That's best told over a glass of wine. But I took over a small company. We own 6 childcare centers, and that was really my dip into owning a small business. And my in-laws were first-generation Americans, built the entire company from scratch, were very successful, and but the company was about 30 years old. And so I spent 6 years touching every aspect of the small business and upgrading it, and then set the company up for an acquisition and sold the company to one of our competitors in 2019. We closed and then exited the business in January of 2020. So really the timing was very, very lucky, fortunate, I guess. And fast forward to now, I run a small consulting company. I serve as a small business coach. And then I also volunteer for an organization called SCORE, which is an amazing resource to small businesses. And we're going to tell you all about it a little bit later.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, you have quite the background, and I'm sure we'll get into more of that in a bit. So Mohammed, tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing these days.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Mohammed Hussein. I was born in Jordan, came here when I was 10 years old, so first generation Americans. I'm a first generation, right? Yeah. So I came here when I was 10 years old. Went to school, high school, college, graduated college, and then I moved to Tracy. That's where my brother and I decided to partner up and do something, open up a business. We came up with Yapa Hummus, and the goal was to kind of expand and grow our hummus product line. We came down to, after thinking about it and doing all that, we thought about just opening a restaurant. Didn't think about opening multiple, to focus on the hummus brand, but things changed, and next thing you know, we opened our Dublin location and then our Livermore location. REI is actually where I spend most of my money. So Julie, that goes to you, or used to. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me, and we'll talk about more of my business as we go forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I feel like I should have put a poll to see how many folks have gone to Yapa Hummus, because I feel like it's kind of a staple here in Dublin now, but maybe that's just me. And Hazel, do you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thank you, Felicia. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Hazel Weatherford, I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Dublin. And I've been with the city, I want to say I'm in my 12th year. I love what I do, economic development, supporting businesses and meeting some amazing people like Mohammed and going to his restaurant. I think I go like once a week. The food is delicious, it's great, but just helping people succeed in their passion and their goals and being that resource is just fantastic. So I love that we get to do, or I get to do what I do. So a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Hazel. And then I'm going to hand it over to Marlo, who also is in the business of supporting other businesses.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Marlo Schindler. I'm the lead lender relations specialist for the San Francisco District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So we're a federal agency. We help businesses to start and grow all over America. But it's nice to come to the city level to have these conversations as well. The three main things that SBA provides service in is access to capital, so lending products, technical assistance, which is basically counseling. SCORE is a prime example of the type of counseling that we fund, and then government contracting, which presumably won't be much of a topic today, but if that's something that you are interested in, especially contracting at the federal level, then happy to follow up with some more conversations on that. And then been a couple allusions to the pandemic already. The last 3 years, SBA has become much more widely known for PPP and COVID EIDL, the economic injury disaster loans. So even though those funds are not currently available, they're not being dispersed any longer, we are still servicing those loans. So guessing there's some folks on the line who got a PPP or COVID EIDL. If you are going through issues with trying to start making payments on your COVID EIDL or going through the PPP forgiveness process, that's also something that happy to talk about generally on this call, or you can reach out to me afterwards for one-on-one questions. And more about SBA to come.
Awesome. Thank you. And I hope that for those of you joining us, you're kind of already seeing the different perspectives of our panels, right? We have like boots on the ground with Mohammed, we have local resources with SCORE and the city, and then we're going up to federal agencies. So you're really going to get a really good perspective and of the different resources available. So now that we kind of know our panelists, we're going to jump in, starting with Mohammed, and just asking you to tell us, how did you decide to open up a business, and what are some of the first steps you took once you made that decision?
Yeah, so I think the first step was like the big idea, right? So me and my brother getting together in our apartment and like, what do we want to do? Mohammed, do you want to go and, work a corporate job, or do you want to do something together? So we decided, like, I'm still young, we could still risk, let's do something together. So having that first initial big idea and then kind of storming it down to what it is that we wanted to do, I think was the first step. Once we figured out like, okay, we want to do something with food and hummus and maybe open a restaurant, The second step we did was we actually hired a consultant. His name was Eric Reese. He worked somewhere in the Bay Area, and he's the one that helped us kind of gather our thoughts and put all these crazy ideas into to help us open the business. So once we did that, we also did a lot of research on our competitors. Like, okay, so if we're gonna be, a fast casual food restaurant, Mediterranean, who are our competitors? And they were all over the Bay Area. So we went and we visited every single one of them. We took down what we liked, we took down what we didn't like, we wrote down what we wanted to do, our brand, how we wanted it to look like. And now our vision was almost like on paper. Then the next step would be like, okay, let's find the restaurant, So I guess the first steps were, finding the idea, getting some help, doing research about your competitors. And then once you have everything on paper or you have your vision drawn out, then you can go ahead and look for a location and actually start your business. But that was the first steps that we took.
That's great. And I love how strategic you were about it. You had this plan and you boots on the ground, checking out these different places, doing the visioning process, putting it on paper, and then getting some help on like, how do we execute this idea that we've dreamt up?
Yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Julie has also owned and sold businesses. So wanted to ask you, and then we'll get to Marlo and get her perspective on this as well. But what advice do you have for business owners looking to start a business?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Muhammad had charted it out right there. The one biggest piece of advice I give my clients is, you have to have a plan, and that plan needs to also include a deep dive into your financials. And most people don't start small businesses because they like business, right? They start small businesses because they make amazing hummus, or they want to run a yoga studio, or you're an artist and you want to open whatever. And that's where that passion comes from. But you really do need to take the time to learn the financials and to understand the mechanics of how a small business runs. So how to write a budget and stick to it, how revenue works, how profitability works, how to maintain strong cash flow. If you are going to have to take on debt, how does interest work? How does tax accounting work for small businesses? And it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to be an accountant. I promise you, like, I am a total people person. So if I can figure this stuff out, you can figure it out. But you need to take the time in the beginning to put your financial plan in place, because if not, you end up perhaps making mistakes that you wouldn't have done if you had that plan in place at the beginning. So you don't have to over-index on it or become a CPA, I promise, but just laying that groundwork of good financial knowledge is really important.
Yeah. And so far we're seeing a theme about the groundwork, the planning, the strategy, the research. Awesome. And Marlo, so what do you have to add to this? What advice do you have for folks looking to start a business?
Yeah, I would just say that your taxpayer dollars are already paying for some resources. So there's a lot of great free options for you. So SBA.gov and score.org both have templates for starting a business plan. And then SBA actually has multiple resource partners that can help with the business plan writing process. They offer free one-on-one counseling and free or low-cost classes as well. When the resource partners do have a cost, it's normally because they have something that they need to pay for on their end. So it's, Quicken licenses for a bookkeeping class or something like that, where they're not making money off of the class. They're just kind of trying to break even. I would also say I was just on a previous call with some small business owners who are all in construction. One thing that comes up is personal credit. So people who are applying for small business loans sometimes think that that shouldn't be relevant. Judge me based on my business, not based on my personal credit. But that's not really how it works, especially when you're kind of in that pre-startup phase. Any owner of 20% or more of the company is going to have to personally guarantee the loan, and their credit score is going to be taken into consideration about whether or not that loan's even going to be offered. So if there are any problems, it's better to start addressing that early, so that by the time the business is far enough along that it might otherwise be eligible to get a loan. Kind of everything that's needs to have been addressed in each business owner's life is also kind of been resolved.
Thank you. Yeah. So it sounds like, yeah, more planning, more making sure everything's kind of set and you're in a good place. And then after that, then you go to a city and you get things started. So I'm going to pass it over to Hazel to tell us what are the first 3 things or so that you should do when starting a business here in Dublin, and what are some of the common faux pas or mistakes that you've seen business owners make when getting started?
Yes, thank you, Felicia. So we do have a question, but I'm assuming we're going to leave those for the end. Okay, perfect. So when you're ready to move out of, let's say, your home-based business, or you're ready to just go into a brick and mortar like Mohammed with a restaurant, the first thing I can tell everyone is to really to call the economic development team. Every city has one, and talk with them first, because one of the things, you may have a broker that's looking for space for you, but even the brokers may not understand the zoning of the area. And so the biggest faux pas that we've seen over time is people sign a lease for a space and they didn't talk to the city about the zoning requirements, the parking standards, or just understanding the tenant improvement process. And so the economic development team within all the cities are here to help provide that service as a liaison or an ombudswoman or ombudsman. So always call and talk with them so you can get the information that you need before you sign a lease, because once a lease is signed, it makes it that much more challenging. And sometimes we've had instances where a business was not allowed to locate, and then it creates a really large problem. So 1, talk to the economic development team. 2, we will be able to place you in touch with these amazing resources like the ladies that are on the screen here today with SBA and SCORE. But in addition, at a local level, we'll be putting you in touch like with the Dublin Chamber that will advocate for you. They provide additional resources and amazing networking opportunities so that you can talk with like-minded business owners that are in the restaurant business or the automotive business, or any type of industry sector. And then also at the regional level, we have the East Bay Small Business Development Center, and they will partner with you. They will review your business plan and make sure that you've done your market research, put you in touch with a mentor, understand your capital, understanding the legal entity that you're forming, whether that's a corporation or a limits and liability or sole proprietor. And so we will help you, put you in touch with all of these amazing resources and opportunities. And as I think Julia Marla mentioned, a lot of this is already paid for by state and federal dollars. So there is no cost to you. And I mean, Mohammed, you really hit the nail on the head. You really did your research. You got a mentor. You did all the right things, going down your list of things. And a lot of times business owners don't do that. They don't do the research. They don't do their homework. And just understanding that they have a passion and a dream that's exciting, but doing all of that foundational work is important.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I think that really nails home. There's so many resources out there and so many people willing to help you and make you successful. And it's just a matter of getting in touch with the right folks. And starting with the city is definitely a great place to start, especially before signing leases and such. And so far we've talked about kind of making the decision to start your business and some considerations for folks about to make the leap. Now we're going to jump into more of like, you've kind of gotten started and now what? And so we're going to go back to Mohammed. And can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you ran into when you first opened your business, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still facing challenges every day. every week, every month, there's still constant challenges when owning your own business. You're still learning, you're always learning. There's so much going on. Some like the biggest challenges I faced really were roles and delegations, and then me and Julie were speaking about this earlier, but like when I was in there in the beginning, I was wearing all the hats at once. I wasn't delegating correctly. And that's such a big challenge because you're not going to focus on what you need to do. So understanding that there needs to be a role for each person there. Each person should be accountable for, whatever it is that they're doing. Delegating the correct tasks to the correct persons is also very important. I should let my bookkeeper do the things that he needs to do and focus on the line. I should let my cook focus on the cooking, so those roles just really will save you so much time and a headache once you be able to delegate roles. And then the system that you create in your business, whatever it is. I mean, I'm in the food industry, so obviously there's a system when the food comes out, when the register takes the order, everything. So I think in every business there's a system, right, of what comes in, what comes out. That system is always gonna be a work in progress. And I didn't know that. Like when we had that first system in our head, like, okay, it's gonna be step 1, 2, and 3, it took me a while before I'm like, okay, this could be changed. This should be changed. And now we're changing it all the time. I mean, we're not making big impact changes on it right now, but you always want to refine the system. And it can't be just whatever you thought about in the beginning. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. It needs to be like, always a work in progress for your system in your business. And then another challenging aspect of it that I didn't really deal with very good in the beginning was finding the right employees. Sometimes you just want to settle and hire someone because you need them, but it just takes so much time of your training. When you hire someone that's not as qualified, you might work 2 times as hard to cover them, and then they might leave after a while. Unfortunately, the restaurant business has really high turnover, so we're always going through employees. However, there is a way to keep your employees, and there is a way to find good employees, and you just got to be patient, and you got to put the correct job posts online and such. So those are some of the challenges that I think we faced early on, along with so many other ones. But every day is just a learning in progress, really. So.
Yeah. No, I think that was a great response. And one of the things I really like about it is it's not specific to the restaurant industry. If someone's looking to open a daycare or a retail shop, I think some of those things are still going to apply, right? Making sure you have the right folks on board, making sure you have roles and systems and you're delegating and able to focus on what you need to. So really great tips. And since you did such a great job, we're going to ask you a couple more questions here. So when did you make the decision to expand your business? So you started with the one location in Tracy and have since opened up a couple more, and it sounds like there's another one coming up. So how did you make that decision?
So, I have a couple partners, right? And when we first started it, it was because, like I said, we wanted to sell hummus like a product line. And then we just ended up opening a restaurant. Once we saw the success of the restaurant after 6 months later, 1 year later, we saw what it could be. We're like, okay, let's put this other kind of plan that we had on hold and let's expand our business now. Going into it, because I had a silent investor and my funding, it wasn't unlimited, but it was pretty, pretty nice. It was there, right? When I needed it, if I needed to grow, the funding was there for it. So that was our goal, after we saw the success right away, okay, now let's shift our goal to open another location. And the end goal was to start franchising, which our FDD after 6 years, of being in this business. About 2 weeks ago, our FDD is our franchise disclosure document, which is what needs to be presented to the franchisees, anyone that's interested in it. By California law, it needs to be approved by California and such. So that was just approved about 2 weeks ago. So congratulations to us. That was cool. But thank you. But the goal was to expand and get big from the beginning somehow in some way, whether it was the hummus product line or this because we had that silent. One restaurant wasn't just going to do it for us. We had bigger aspirations and bigger goals from the beginning. So to be honest, that's the reason why we expanded, because that was our goal and we had the funding for it.
Great. And so I think now is probably a good time to squeeze in the question we got from the Q&A. So at what point did you think about branding, especially since you knew that this was going to be a business that you expanded? And then the second part of that question, did you buy an existing restaurant or kitchen, or did you have to kind of build all of that for each of your locations?
The first question was the branding part. The branding part was from day one. Honestly, once we met with the consultant, before we opened the restaurant, before we even found the location, once we met with the consultant, Eric, and we started because remember, our brain was everywhere. We had all these things, and he helped us really settle all that in. Once that happened, we developed our brand and our culture and what we wanted to be there, and we stuck with that till now. Now, there's a lot of changes that have been made, but I think that's very key. An example, we wanted to serve healthy food that made you feel good and not full and to go to sleep after you eat it. That was our main goal, and that sticks till now. Like yesterday, I kid you not, we had Mexican food, my brother and I, and he fell asleep in the office after he had that burrito. That will never happen with the office. You just eat it and you go about your day, So that was one. Community connection was two, and just keep it clean, honest brand was number three. That's pretty much what we created since day one, and our values and our culture, we had to keep that till now, or else we would have been lost, really. In regards to the restaurant, our first restaurant was an existing one, so that didn't cost a lot. Second gen restaurants are much more efficient to purchase and redo and do all that. You don't have to go through the mess of converting a hair salon, which is what we did in Dublin. We took over Supercuts and we put a restaurant in there, which means, grease trap, hood, and a lot of time with Hazel and permit, at the permit counter and all that good stuff. So second gen restaurants is highly recommended if you can find it. I think there's a lot of them in the market. And branding, you want to find your brand in the beginning and you want to stick with it. You can change a few things about it, but the brand, the culture, who you are, you want to know who you are going into the business, and you want to stick with it because we feel like what you're about, right? Your brand. And once your values and everything changes, then you're
Great job. Yeah, thank you for letting us put you on the spot and giving us some of that insight. Now we're going to transition it over to Hazel. And I mean, it sounded like you work with the city a lot, transforming Supercuts into Jaffa hummus. And so Hazel, can you talk about some of the resources and programs the city offers to support businesses like Jaffa and others, either starting or expanding?
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to touch upon something that Mohammed said, and absolutely, one of the biggest questions we get from food and beverage establishments is second generation space, because they're saving so much money on what we call the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And so for any new restaurant coming in, that is the most expensive cost, is to buy the hood, the stove, the refrigerator, sub below zero, all those things that they need. And so second generation space does not last very long. It gets picked up on the market very quickly. But in regards to how we help our businesses, because we do want to see our businesses succeed, we have a number of programs that we put in place. Before the actual incentive programs, I do want to mention one of the things that we know is a challenge for business owners is to get in contact with staff or read their emails. And so what we did was we created a direct connect with staff by using text messaging. We were very, I want to say, innovative. I didn't know any other city that was doing this at the time when we implemented it. And so you could text us, the economic development team, and one of us would respond, because you may not be always checking your email, but what I like to say is everybody always has a phone, and a phone is so much easier to say, hey, let me ask this real quick question and we can respond. And so that was one of the newest programs that we implemented. so that you have direct access to us. And then on top of that, we understand that some of our buildings are older and need a remodel. So we put together a commercial facade remodel that will help you upgrade the exterior of the building, whether that's new doors and windows and painting and awnings. We have a program for that. We also learned from another business that was trying to locate in a space that they didn't have enough funds to bring the building up to code. Because once you're making tenant improvements inside the space, you're going to trigger to bring everything in that building up to the current building code. And so we learned to put together what we call a small business assistance program to help with accessibility issues, to help with Title 24 building codes. And then we also created a sewer capacity assistance program to help our food and beverage establishments when they're opening a space. They have to work with the Dublin San Ramon Services District on understanding what the capacity is at that site. And if they need to purchase additional capacity, that could be an extreme cost to some. And so we can help provide, it is specific to certain areas in the city and the type of business, but we can help you with those costs. And then lastly, we're getting ready to put together and launch a small business navigator program. And what that will be is a bench of consultants. And I love how you said it earlier, Julie, that you're expected to be an expert in all of these different fields, whether it's legal and HR. We were just on a webinar or a roundtable with our fitness businesses, and they were talking about being HR specialists with the new laws that came out from independent contractors to employees and having to learn all this stuff. And so I understand the angst and the pains that you have to wear all these different hats. And so what we're trying to do is create a program based on our survey that we did with our businesses on these outlier questions that we couldn't address specifically, but what we could do is put a bench together consultants, whether that's an HR consultant, a business attorney, an HR, or did I say that HR person, marketing. A lot of businesses needed help with marketing. Those that opened during the pandemic, they're like, people don't know we're here, we need help. So we'll have this bench of consultants, and then we will provide hours to each business within those different areas that you need help in. And so we're out with an RFP right now. Once we get those responses back and do the interviews, and we're going to be launching that program later this year to help address those concerns, because we know that there are many concerns, and this is one way we were able to address that.
Great, thank you. And it's a good thing we're recording this because you just talked about a lot of different programs and resources, and it sounds like we have everything from technical assistance to assistance with funding and yeah, a lot of staff support. And again, we're available through text message. So if you have questions or comments, then feel free to email or text us. And so we have a question in the Q&A. We'll try to squeeze that in at the end. Since we're talking about resources, I wanted to talk to Marlo about what additional resources do businesses have available to them?
Sure. There's a couple different mentions of funding kind of leading up to this question, and that's kind of my bread and butter. So that's what I'm going to address when it comes to resources. First off, I would say that all business owners should have a relationship with their bank or credit union. That might not be the immediate source of a loan for you, but it's the better you have a relationship with your business banker, the easier it is to have those conversations when it is the right time. But that's not the only option. So we're very lucky here in the state of California that we actually have a lot of non-bank lenders, so mission-based nonprofit lenders that do small business lending. For the SBA, we have a microloan program that goes up to $50,000, and it is a particularly good program for startups, pre-startups, and then basically just anyone who's maybe been in business for a long time but only needs $50,000, because a lot of the banks and credit unions, specifically in Northern California, won't do a business loan for that small dollar amount. So we also see businesses that have, maybe been in business 20 years, but just need a small amount of capital, go through that program. And then because there's been a lot of restaurant talk, another good program for people who are getting into the food industry to be aware of is the Community Advantage Loan Program. And that is a version of our 7A loan program, which is a working capital loan program that is primarily done through banks and credit unions, but the community advantage version of it is done by CDFIs, Certified Development Financial Institutions. And it goes up to $350,000. It's, again, very popular with food industry, with restaurants, with startups, and also with some of the other industries that banks are a little less interested in working with until they're very well established. So we have community advantage lenders that can lend throughout the whole state of California. We have Main Street Launch here locally that's headquartered in Oakland that helps veterans all over the state. And then they specifically do lending in Oakland, San Francisco, and Stockton. We have CDC Small Business Finance. We have some lenders that specialize in agricultural businesses. So we have a plethora of good mission-based nonprofit lenders here, in addition to the technical assistance resource partners. So we have the traditional, we have the banks and the credit unions, and they're great, but that's kind of not the only option.
Great. So what I'm hearing is if you have an idea, you have a plan, you really want to open a business, there is funding available. Even if you don't have the funds to get it started, there are resources and options for securing some of that funding to get off the ground. So thank you, Marlo. And Julie, as a SCORE mentor, can you talk about some of the resources available to new or current business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So SCORE is a group, it's a nonprofit, and we work closely with the Small Business Administration. And here in the East Bay, we are a team of over 60 volunteers who all have wide different backgrounds in small businesses, owning different businesses. You know, we've got a couple business lawyers, some HR experts, some marketing gurus, and we offer free coaching and mentorship to small business owners in the East Bay. And we have a ton of resources. Our website is scoreeastbay.org. And you can do one-on-one coaching with a mentor who can help you kind of as you go through this process, like Mohammed's done such a great job of outlining for us, help you along the way to figure out what your questions and what your answers are. We teach a ton of different workshops, and they are on a variety of topics, everything from how to write a business plan, how to get financing, everything you would need to know along the process. And we really try and meet clients where they are at. So whether you are just kind of scheming and dreaming and you don't really know what you're going to do, or if you're in startup mode, or you've been in business 3 or 5 years, but you just need some fine tuning or some expertise, or you're all the way at the end of your process and you're thinking about how to sell your business and how to exit, SCORE is there for you. And we would be happy to help however we could.
Great. Yeah, there are lots of resources at the local level, but then also kind of higher up at the state and federal level as well. So hopefully you're taking notes and kind of seeing that as a theme here. Lots of support out there for folks who currently have a business or would like to start one. And so we're going to go back to our business owner, Mohammed here. And so you own a business. Can you share with us what you wish you would have known before getting started?
Everything from A to Z. I mean, what you expect is probably not going to happen. I'm sorry. Cash flow management. I said this earlier today, but that is so important. The cash flow management. Legal and regulatory requirements are.
Mohammed, I think you might be frozen. Okay. I'm gonna try to mute him.
You muted yourself.
Okay, let's see. Okay, while we wait for Mohammed to hop back on, Julie, do you mind taking on that question of what do you wish you would have known before getting started in the business industry?
Yeah, this is the one that's otherwise known as like, what did we really screw up and wish we'd known better when we started. I think I might channel Mohammed on this because I think one of the things that I learned the hard way when I owned my company was that you really need to build a team of trusted advisors. And, when you own your own company, like every penny you spend is a penny out of your own pocket, right? And so it seems so expensive to seek the advice of a lawyer or a consultant or, the CPA. But you really do need those advisors because, for instance, if you're, reviewing a lease for a new facility, unless you happen to be a lawyer or your brother-in-law is a lawyer, it seems like a lot of money to spend $400 or $500 to have a lawyer review a lease for you. But at the end of the day, that might be the best money you spend because they may find two things that in the end of the day are going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And so I kind of struggled with that because I wanted to do it all myself. And what I learned is you need those people that you've already made friends with somebody at the city and you've already have a lawyer that you have a relationship with that you can call them on the phone when you have a problem. So take the time to build those relationships and don't be afraid to use them when you think you need them. It's money well spent.
Yes, and the other thing I'm hearing is really invest in yourself and invest in your business, making sure you get the right expertise. And luckily, if someone needs assistance reviewing a lease, the city will have the small business navigator program, so we'll be able to help with some of that. But definitely making sure at the beginning, not cutting corners and doing things the right way to set you up for later on. And then we're going to go back to Mohammed, who's used to bouncing back from technical difficulties, from things at the restaurant. So what do you wish you would have known? We heard you say everything and start talking a little bit about cash flow management.
Yeah, cash flow management, I think, is a very important one. Understanding and budgeting, whether you're marketing, how much are you spending on that? Your subscriptions every month, they're going to add up, whether it's your internet or your Clover or your insurance or your policy. So everything really, just having a clear understanding of your budget and what you're spending from the get-go and not saying, I'm gonna get back to that. That's when you start piling everything on top of each other. And you got to remember, while you're doing all this, you're still running the business. So there's still the day-to-day operation that you're doing. So with cash flow management, I think it's really important. I wish I knew this from the beginning, how important this was, but time management and truly blocking certain times of the week for certain things. I didn't start doing that maybe till like a year ago. And that was like after 5 years, It is so important to know, like, okay, Mondays and Tuesdays are for this day, Wednesdays and Thursdays are for this day, Fridays and Saturdays, because we work 6 days a week. We don't work 5 days. Fridays and Saturdays are for this day. So time management, cash flow management, the legal aspect of it. You don't have to know everything, but like Julie said, you should have someone on your team. Whether it's someone that's going to be from your payroll company, like ADP, HR Pro, right? Where you call them if you have any questions. Whether you have a mentor from SCORE, whether you use Dublin's economic development business to have someone from HR to help you out with what you need. You got to have the tools, those tools appropriately, and not just stack things on top and just let it wait. And then I'll go back to this, but having your role, especially if you have a team of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, having clear roles and clear delegations of who's doing what would be really nice. And I wish I knew COVID was coming. That would have helped. So yeah, experience is gonna just teach you a ton. You just got to understand that in the beginning, you're going to face a lot of issues, and don't feel down as hard as it is going to get, because it is going to get extremely difficult. The harder it gets and the more you overcome that, I feel like the stronger you will become. So just keep going and manage your time and manage your cash, and I think you'll be fine. Very two important things. And don't settle for bad employees. Like I said earlier, find the right people. Julie said that as well. I think finding the right people is very, very crucial to your business.
Awesome. Thank you, Mohammed. And we're going to pivot a little bit because it looks like there might be some folks that are joining us that are doing more of a home occupation and not necessarily a bricks and mortar, and who are wondering kind of what nuggets they can take away from this. So just trying to think about the conversation we've had. We had a lot of good conversation about available resources, capital, as well as business consulting. We talked about the need to plan, learned some valuable lessons from Mohammed when it came to needing to have the right processes in place and evolve as needed, making sure you have the right staff, making sure you have the right team. I'm just going to open it up to the panel. What are some other takeaways that those folks that don't have a brick and mortar can take away or learn, or what's important to those folks as well?
I'll just chime in. Well, it depends on the goals of the home-based business, because we've seen a lot of people that want to get to a brick and mortar. So providing all the foundation for that. So it depends on what their objectives and goals are. But I would definitely say research and connection and networking. Like that would be a great effort for them to join the Dublin Chamber and start networking with others and just do a lot of their research and growing their business.
Yeah, I agree with that. I joined the Dublin Chamber, I think as soon as we based in Dublin, I went and I met Inga like the following week. And it was Inga Houston, by the way. She's the most awesome and wonderful person ever. She's the CEO of the Dublin Chamber. And I went and met her, and I just felt so welcome to town. And before we had the business even open there, I was already invited to an event at the Dublin High School. I remember, Hazel, you were there, the mayor was there. There was a whole bunch of people there. That was like a few weeks before, I think. And I met so many people there. So the connections I made that day helped me and my business, till now in Dublin. So just going to those events, the mixers, high school events, Dublin Chamber events, there's so much utility and so much that you can get from that. It's not talked about enough, but joining the chamber and being active in the community is extremely important, in my opinion. One of the things that we love doing, and we do in every location that we open up, and we will require our franchisees to do, like in Lodi, when he opens, he is required to be in chamber and be, at the events and network with people, because we know how much value that gives to the business.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely great. Regardless of what industry or what type of business you have, those are some great tips to get connected. And then also just keep in mind, like, what is the goal of the business? And maybe if you're a home occ, maybe you haven't thought about like going to bricks and mortar. But now hopefully you know all the resources that are available if you do decide to make that change.
The other thing I want to mention, and I'm going to give a plug to Mohammed here, is if you are a home-based business and you're trying to grow your clientele, how are you using social media to do that? Are you even doing that? That's a great avenue to explore to help grow your business. Mohammed, I've been seeing your reels and they are amazing. I love that you're doing that now, because it just provides more exposure, showing people what type of restaurant you have, the type of food, how it's prepared, and you're getting into that market area, like for like younger adults who are, that's like their only avenue of marketing. So kudos to you on that.
Yeah, that was a big challenge. Believe it or not, I'm not a big social media guy. Like, I don't even have Instagram. I just have a Twitter account, and that's about all. So I don't like social media itself. So having to deal with that with my business was the biggest struggle ever. And I've delegated that to a team. They come up with all the ideas. They do everything. I'm just there to pay them or whatever they need, really. But yeah, just, but someone needs to do it. And social media, like you said, is a big key for sure.
And that goes back to making sure you have the right team and that you're delegating. So good for you. Mohammed is working out when it comes to marketing and social media. So we still have a little bit of time. So just going to go over some of the questions that have come in. Someone made a note that it's important to get an attorney to help with which type of entity you want to be. So yes, I think Julie is like, amen. Yes, make sure you do that.
Yep. And Felicia, at SCORE, we teach a workshop on a whole workshop on legal issues for startups. So we walk through all, the workshop would walk you through all the different types of legal entities and help you make those decisions.
Great. Yeah. Another resource and
we'll
definitely something important
And
to.
Felicia put in a plug for our upcoming program that will help businesses connect with an attorney to help answer those kind of questions.
Yes, definitely. So the lots of avenue, if you are more of a, you just want to watch something and then do it yourself, if, then yeah, workshops definitely great. If you want someone to provide assistance, then you can definitely go through the city and we'll help connect you to someone that can provide that expertise. And then, so we have some more questions. So are there specific programs for tech businesses in startup mode? So I'm going to put Hazel on the spot and then maybe Marlo or Julie can jump in.
So for tech businesses, we do a partnership regionally with the Tri-Valley cities. And we have what is called the Startup Tri-Valley. And they also have Daybreak Labs, and they provide a co-working space, educational classes, and mentorship through that program. And one of the things I'll mention, and I'm sure Felicia was going, when she wraps up, all of this will be shared in an email afterwards with all the participants so that you know who to contact, where to go. So all the things that we're discussing, we'll be able to put a plug in there. But that's one of the offerings. We also work with the East Bay Small Business Development Center, and they put on classes as well, targeted towards different industry sectors. And those are always shared on our city business calendar. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to that, as well as our email newsletters. We always share all the information that's free to our businesses. We push that information out, whether it's SBA, SCORE, East Bay SBDC, all of these organizations that offer free classes.
Yes.
I'm just going to go ahead and jump right on that because so the SBDC centers in Northern California, they are for the most part geographically based. So there's an East Bay SBDC and then, one for San Francisco, Silicon Valley, et cetera. But we also have a couple of specialty SBDC centers that focus on either an affinity group or an industry. And so for tech startups, we have Tech Futures Group. So it's an SBDC center, it's under the SBDC or Small Business Development Center umbrella, but instead of serving one or two counties, they specifically work with tech businesses. And because they offer kind of a more hand-holding than the SBDC centers that have the geographic base, the East Bay SBDC is really good if you have a specific marketing issue. You really want to work on your social media, or you're signing your first lease or hiring your first employee. Like those are all kind of targeted needs that the SBDC can help with. But Tech Futures Group does a little bit more holistic, and they also help businesses that are trying to get access to kind of the financing that is available in tech that's not available to the other types of businesses. So they can help with like pitching angels, getting a VC interested, and kind of putting your deck together for that type of financing, which is kind of a whole different world from talking with a bank or a credit union. So highly recommend Tech Futures Group. And again, it's not available to just everyone who applies. They have limited resources, so there is an application process. Whereas with the geographic based SBDCs like SCORE, they take all businesses that come in. So there is an application process.
Thank you. Yeah, first time I'm hearing of it, but it sounds like a great program. So we'll make sure to include that link in our follow-up email along with the recording. There's another question here asking about classes or workshops for social media and Facebook. And the answer is yes. And so we will also provide you with links to some of the resources available. We have some courses that we'll be offering through the city. We'll be launching a Dublin business corner that'll have on-demand learning. SCORE definitely provides those workshops, so we'll make sure you get that information and those links. And since we have about 3 more minutes, I want to wrap things up with a final question for each of our panelists. And that is just, what is the one thing you want the attendees to take away from today's webinar? So Julie, putting you on the spot first.
Great, thank you. I think my biggest advice for people at the beginning of the process is to invest the time in thinking of the long-term goal. And so, that goes back to the Covey advice of start with the end in mind. Know who you are, know what you want your brand to be, what you want your culture to be, because just spending a little bit of time up front knowing those things will help guide your entire future of the organization. And a lot of times I'll have clients come and they'll say, I'm having such a hard time building my website. And the truth is, if you spend the time up front learning, deciding what you want your company to be like, building your website's easy. Then it's just typing and technical, right? When somebody's having trouble building their website, it's probably because they didn't do the work up front to know who do they want to be, what they want their culture to be, who's their customer, and what do they want to give to the world. So invest in your time and your business and yourself and do that hard work up front.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Great tips. And for those that are in business, I think there's still time to go back. If there's still some things you need to plan out or flesh out or change, we heard Mohammed say that things are ever evolving. So it's always okay to go back. And if you need to make changes, do that as well. And so passing over to Marlo, what's one thing you hope folks take away from this?
I think if you're on this call, then obviously you're aware of the good work being done by the economic development folks at the City of Dublin. But I would just say that there are many different layers to government. You're probably not going to be able to get all of your questions answered or all the services you need from one level. So you do have the city, the county, the state, and then the federal. And it's worth checking in kind of with all of us. For the state of California, there's the GoBiz office. That's the governor's office that does kind of the equivalent of what we do at the federal level, at the state level. The county offers different resources. So again, your taxpayer dollars have kind of already gone into paying the salaries and the programs of the people who provide these services. Maybe you didn't know about the facade improvement program that City of Dublin offers. So, there are, sometimes it can be specific, sometimes it can be really general to an industry, to a geographic area, but try and take advantage, if you can, of the resources that are already out there that are we're trying to find you, we're trying to give you these resources as much as possible, so when you can, take advantage of them. And I'd also say, again, we're just very lucky in the state of California that we're a pretty friendly environment. I know there was a question in the chat about whether there's too much regulation in the state, and I won't address that because I don't work for the state. But I would say that we're very lucky with a small business ecosystem where a lot of us know each other. So, if you have a question and you come to me and it's actually a Secretary of State question, I'm not going to just blow you off. I'm going to try and give you the resource at GoBiz, at the Secretary of State, at the city level. I'm going to try and get you to the right place. And that, I think, is true of a lot of people who work in economic development in this state. We want you to succeed. It's true of our resource partners as well. If it's something that SCORE can't do, they'll refer you to another partner that maybe has the resources to provide that kind of counseling. So and I think Mohammed also kind of referred to this with, how great the chamber is in Dublin. They're people know each other, people talk, people share resources, and you're more likely to find out about those resources if you go and talk to other small business owners or get a mentor. So, you know, get out there and take advantage of what's available.
Thank you so much, Marlo. And Hazel, what do you want folks to take away from today?
I think it's all been said, really. I mean, you know, I had put some notes together and just really talked about research, doing your research, connecting with others, and asking for help. I mean, honestly, like somebody like Mohammed who can provide you some advice, but getting into the programs that the city will offer will also provide that. But really just getting yourself out there and asking the questions and just sitting down for a cup of coffee and just saying, hey, can you explain to me how you did this, or any, you know, what we're doing here today, essentially, and just connecting with others. Honestly, you learn so much from that.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope folks understand our takeaway from the city is like, we really want you to be successful. And that's why we're hosting today's webinar and going to follow up with resources, and we're here for you. So hopefully you got that. And so Mohammed, you're wrapping us up. You have to share your words of wisdoms and what you want folks to take away from today's webinar.
Yeah, I mean, I really truly think it's already been said. So many tools out there and free resources that you guys can use. I would take advantage of all that. If someone offers you help, accept it. That's one piece of advice I've gotten. Eric, who was our first consultant ever before we did anything, and he's like, "Hey, Mohammed, if anyone says like, hey, let me help you with something, you should always accept it." And then I was like, okay, like that's cool, but you know, I'm not the type of person that's accept anyone's help. However, I did that. And every time someone was like, hey, let me help you with this, or let me help you with that, or let me advise you with this, or whether it's at the city or the chamber or something, and that's helped me a ton. Just talking to people, networking, I think is a very, very big key for your business. And the more people you meet, the more connections you make, you know, the more your mind will open up to certain ideas or how you will run your business. And I think you'll just be more successful based on that. So accept the help and use the resources around you, because there's a ton of resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to the folks that have joined us this afternoon, and also huge thank you to our panelists for all your great ideas, suggestions, resources. We'll make sure to follow up with an email so you have access to this recording and to some of the resources we referenced today. I'm also going to put up this screen. Feel free to email us here at the city. Again, you can text us. We have a text program, so feel free to text us or give us a call. We are really glad that you joined us and hope to be in touch soon. So thank you all and have a great day.